welcome to Divisive Issues, the foul-mouthed, spoiler-filled comic book podcast where two fans and two non-fans talk about controversial, noteworthy comic books. I'm Ryan.
I'm Sly.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Darryl.
And we're here for the penultimate chapter of Bleach.
We're back on our bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As some people used to say, us, namely us, we made it. We did it. So we have all finished Bleach, right? Like we all read through this whole thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I just want to say, as a disclaimer, I read this all over the last couple days, and I really had a hard time not totally glazing over.
I'm going to use an example whenever you point out stuff I missed, and like you were like, "Oh, how'd you miss forget these characters?" I'm like, Ryan, you fucking glazed over all this deep lore.
I don't know.
I feel like both of you guys
find
are
that
such,
to be.
You guys are such comic speed readers that you just zoom through everything we do.
Yeah.
But
No, but this, I was like, there were whole fights, and I'm like, I don't really know who either of these people are, whatever.
This is part of the problem is, like, this arc that we're going to get into, the last arc, introduces so many villains. And I was just like, here's, like, the highlights to me that I found throughout this thing. And it's like I had said before, last few parts, it's like, none of this is going to be interesting to Ryan because there's no emotional stakes. It's just two bozos clashing swords over and over against each other.
Oh, so I should change my previous statement. You can no longer bitch about Darryl not running with a team anymore because you weren't willing to run with any of these teams, Ryan, apparently. So like when Darryl says, who's his character? What's his deal? You can't say, oh, fuck you, Darryl, for not playing along. Darryl is now 100% Ryan every argument going forward with this sword.
Did he say that about me? He's like, fuck you,
No,
Darryl, for not knowing.
That's usually what Sly says.
No, but it's a common complaint that you always have, like, you always want the backstory, like, starting point to end point of every character.
Oh, yeah.
And Ryan always says, like, Joe said it the best, like, you don't meet, like, the people in your life from their origin story. You meet them midway, and you kind of get used to them.
The difference, though, for me is with, like, if we're reading, let's say, like, some Superman story, there might be these other people showing up, but Superman is still there. Here, I'm like, Ichigo's not here for, like, a long time.
But the main villain is. So
Yeah,
he's your anchor.
The arc's kind of about him.
Ichigo, like, I flipped, Darryl. Ichigo sucks.
Yes!
He's not a character. He is, like, nothing. Like, goddamn.
Right? Oh my god. I can't believe you finally reach it. And that's why I was like, Naruto's really annoying, but Naruto has principles. He wants to be the leader of his village when he starts, and he ends up realizing how, like, cruel the world is as the series goes on. Whereas here it's like, Ichigo's like, what does he want out of life? What does he think about anything? Nothing.
Yeah.
He's essentially a non-character in this whole last set that you gave us.
Yeah.
Like, I was like very interested in all the villains, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, this guy was born this way and like had to rise, whatever. It's kind of like when we read about Grimjow, and you're like, he's way more interesting than Ichigo is.
Yes. Everyone is.
I was still I really liked his and Rukia's relationship in the beginning.
Yep.
But as the series kept going on, that's gone. Like it's a fade of memory.
Right? You're like, like this was a really cool dynamic they had, and they barely interact. I'm trying to think if they interact ever at the last. I think only one time they just talk to each other, and that's it. Or they
This whole thing reminds me of kind of like Dragon Ball Z, because I know the Dragon Ball Z writer wanted to quit, but also the Sonic comics, because the Sonic comics, the guy who like sued them for all his original characters he wrote, he basically didn't want to use Sonic. He wanted to use all his original characters, and basically Sonic just stuck around as like this dope that had no personality, but he was the name recognition, so he was like on the covers, but he had like no involvement on the plot whatsoever.
Yeah, the Sonic comics were a vessel for that guy's ideas.
Yeah, and Ichigo is basically that. He's the face of the franchise, but the writer doesn't give a fuck about him at all anymore. He wants to write all his other characters.
He doesn't even get any cool new powers at the end. I expected him to come up to have like
he does. I'll specify when we get to it.
Yeah. One other thing I just want to say, that I'm so broken from this, that I read so much Bleach yesterday, that then I was like, I'm finally done with this. I'm going to like just decompress and read some Flash comic. And I got at the end of the issue and I was like, that seemed weird. And I realized I was reading it from right to left.
You got to the
and
end?
it took a whole issue for me to notice. I was like, this seems weird.
What a unique style of storytelling. Everything seems to be out of place slightly.
It was also like 2:30 in the morning.
Oh boy. So before we get to the final arc, the Quincy arc, we have to talk about the Fullbringer arc. And this is the arc that's sandwiched in between the last one we did, the ones with the hollows, and the one we're about to do, the Quincy arc, the final one. And this is what the anime ended on.
Oh, so the anime doesn't have the Quincy arc?
No.
I said this to Darryl off mic, but I might as well say it now. This whole arc feels like when a series has been canceled and they make a TV movie like years down the line and the budget's like nothing. Like nothing. Like this is like way after the point anyone cares. The anime fans stop caring at this point. The manga fans stop caring at this point. Like this is like and this feels cheaper in the rest of the series. Like the art is so much worse.
Yeah.
It feels so forgot like after.
Plus, they had caught. I'm pretty sure they had caught up to Kubo at this point, and so he's so like you can see how slow it is. Where it's like we don't want to make like 100 episodes of a single fight. That they were like, we're just gonna end it here rather than wait to see how he finishes like the Quincy arc.
I like the idea of a Quincy arc because they've been an organization in the world since the beginning. Like I'm
Yes.
like, oh, that's interesting to have them.
This should have been. I like the idea too. This should have been earlier. I don't think they don't feel like a final boss. Like by making them a final boss, I feel like you just made them feel like generic villains.
But they were always opposed to the Shinigami, right?
Yeah, but like you set up like these because they seem like they're different from like the Shinigami and those guys. But this story made them feel like the exact same thing. Like they're just they have all the powers are varied. It's like no uniformity. Like they should have been a mini boss before Aizen. They shouldn't have been the final boss.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
So the Fullbringer arc is really interesting to me, and I like it's my favorite arc. But I will specify I do not think it's necessarily the best arc, and also. I think the less you like Bleach, the more you potentially would like the Fullbringer arc, or the more you like the very first arc, is the more you'll like this. Because
if you could tolerate Bleach at this point, you have to like Bleach. You can't. Either you're Darryl or you're us being forced to read through.
But I'm saying, like, if you're like, yes, the Soul Society arc's so good, where I'm like, it's a good arc. It's definitely not like my favorite, though. It still has its like low points. Whereas the Fullbringer arc, because it's so short, it's about 54 chapters. It's very self-contained. It's like it's what you want out of Kubo, where it's like just be shorter. Just don't extend this out forever. And he also, rather than having like 100 people, he introduces like 7 new characters. And you get to know them. And it's really interesting. It starts with Ichigo not having any powers, and it does like the same thing as the very first chapter did, where it's like hair, orange, occupation, student. And then it says he cannot see ghosts. And it explains that it's been 1.5 years later, and there's been like, you know, change ups, and there's a lot more maturity in the characters. Like now Ichigo's goth sister is the one dealing with the ghosts that he had to deal with. Remember, he had to deal with ghosts.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and then like his other younger sister, the nice one, is having problems because like he's moody, and so it makes her moody. And then he goes to school, and all of his friends are like, we're getting jobs now, and Ichigo no longer like hangs out with us, and they don't like that. And Ichigo himself now has a part-time job that he's working on, and he's trying to save up money to figure out what he wants to do with his life. So there's this like brimming adulthood to the series now, where you're like, oh, this is cool. That it's not just like, oh boy, high school's a lot of fun. It's like, what are you going to do after life? And you get a lot of narration from Ichigo thinking about where it's like my time being a Soul Reaper, that like I was proud of it, but then I have nothing remaining of that, and he doesn't know. You know, he's kind of like drifting here, and that permeates like a lot of the arc. It's like it's this really cool juxtaposition of what would it be like, sort of like in 52, if like Superman has no powers and he has to watch everyone else go and do stuff. Like Ichigo watches like the glasses Quincy just like run out of the room because he needs to go fight Hollows, and Ichigo can't do anything, so he's just like, I'm just gonna sit here, I guess.
That sounds great.
Yes, and so what ends up happening is he meets this group of people. They're called Execution. It's letter X and then Cution. And this is, it's sort of like how the Hollows were all Spanish oriented. This is all like English. And these people have a special power. I never like got into this because it's just so unnecessary to know. But
I don't want to fill my brain with all this pointless knowledge.
Yeah, you know how like spiritual powers like Reiatsu and stuff? That power is unique to Shinigamis. Whereas what the Quincy's do is they use the power in the very earth itself and around them, like in the spirit of things, and they harness that power to turn them into like bows to use them as, you know, energy bullets.
Okay, that's what I thought they did, because here it just seems like they're just Shinigami in this story arc.
Yeah. But they don't technically like necessarily have their own like Reiatsu power. But it's like, again, Kubo doesn't like really give a shit about explaining any of this stuff.
That's what I mean. Like, by making the Quincy's these big ultra badass, you took out anything that made them unique. Like now they're just another fucking villain from Ichigo to
Yep,
fight.
and I agree.
Yeah.
But the Fullbringers are these guys that they manipulate power. That's what they're supposed to do. Is like rather than they can push and pull on power, which is a really cool idea. But again, Kubo doesn't he doesn't ever utilize it. So what it really means is all these Fullbringers have tools that they have on them that harnesses their power. And this is where it gets into like how I like how Kubo does a lot of his powers. They makes them really interesting. I think the most interesting powers are going to be like one of two things. It either has to be, if it's really powerful, it has to come at some great cost when you use it. So there has to be some disadvantage to it. Or it has to be a power that doesn't seem that useful. It has like a limited use, but is very creative. And all of the Fullbringers fall into the latter category, where, like, for instance, Rurika, she's this, like, tsundere girl. She's the girl of this arc that lights Ichigo. Sort of like how Nell was the girl of the last arc, and, like, Orihime of, well, the last arc, too. But her power is that anything she finds cute, she can shrink and put into a dollhouse.
Okay.
And that's really cool because it seems like situational, but like she shrinks Ichigo down to like put him in dollhouse to train, and she shows that they capture a Yakuza guy to train with him.
When they say
like,
cute, do they mean like you're attractive cute, or you are?
Yeah,
like,
it could be both. It could be like this is so like precious, or like just like, oh, you're cute.
So like if they had a fight with her theoretically. I don't know if they ever did. The boss.
They did.
So did the boss try to make himself look more deformed, so she'll stop thinking he's cute or something like that?
But that doesn't happen. But that is a thing where like they ended up capturing Yakuza. In order for her to use her powers on him, they had to put him in a teddy bear outfit so that she thought the teddy bear was cute, then she could shrink him. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Then there's another lady, Jackie.
Oh my god, I'm just imagining like a fight where they have to get a teddy bear suit on the final boss. And he's like, no, get off of me. And she's like, now you're cute. Now you're small.
Yeah. And then there's Jackie, who she wears like boots, and she calls them her dirty boots. And the dirtier the boots get, the stronger they become. And this is what I liked so much about like this arc is it goes from like, my power is like, if I see you, you die. And instead it's like, here's this very like unique power that can be useful if it's in the right state.
This sounds to me like when you read like side spin-off X-Men books that are like deep in the 90s and they're like running out of powers. So like this guy, he has a bunch of slugs that he talks to that can eat anything, and this person can make extra bones.
Counterpoint, Ryan, a lot of those stories were better than the X-Men books at the time. That would be.
Oh no, I'm not. It's the kind of thing that sounds super dumb, but I find to be unique and fun and better than just like this guy can fly.
You're not wrong about that. Definitely like, but that's what I liked. It brought everything back down instead of like, here's like a super powerful like Aizen, you see my sword, I control you forever. Instead it's just like this, when you see them using their powers like smartly or being very strong, you're like, oh, that's really cool that they're able to do this.
I should say, get out of the way. Like that's one of the reasons why I like the side fights before this. And I hate it when we got to the Aizen fight.
Mm-hmm.
I realized reason why I probably like this better than you, Darryl, because I really hate the main fighting format of most shonens, where you know the hero's going to win. He has to win. There's no like he's going to power up somehow during the fight or something. You know he has to win. The fight's already decided. It's just how many bullshit plot twists are going to pull out of their ass before it happens. While a lot of the side fights, you actually see a back and forth and different abilities coming to play with each other.
Yeah, it's like how you had mentioned before during the fake Karakura Town stuff, where you're like, I don't know whether or not these guys are going to win, which makes the fights tense. Whereas I know Ichigo can't die. Even when he gets literally killed, he can't die.
That really happens.
And one of the other things I like about the Fullbringer arc is, this is going to illuminate you guys so much if I like it, is that Chad is revealed to be a Fullbringer. And he's been going here and like training with these guys, and like the tool that he uses is the necklace that his grandpa gave him. And like he gets Ichigo to bring out Ichigo's Fullbringer power, but he does this by telling him that it's like you have to think about what you're prideful in. That's why the tool is so useful, that you find like my necklace instills me with pride because I'm proud of my mestizo blood. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm proud of the color of my skin. And that was a really cool moment to have within a shonen thing
definitely.
Of a minority character being like, I'm proud that I am a minority. Because a lot of shows feel like no one even addresses that. It's like, hey, you're not the same color as me.
Yeah, deep down we're all the same. That kind
Yeah, whereas Chad's like, despite like how big I am and how like scary I may have seemed, I've never felt bad about being Mexican.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So wait,
Too bad we're not reading this fucking arc.
Ichigo's a Fullbringer? Are you born with it?
Okay, so to be a Fullbringer,
Maybe it's Maybelline.
your mother has to be attacked by a hollow. And then that scar transfers to you when you're born. And then you can harness like quasi-hollow powers, which is the Fullbringer stuff.
We should say
That's stupid.
We should say this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is.
While we're talking about this, we should also mention Quincy's mom. Ichigo's mom should not to be a Quincy in this story arc too. He's literally every fucking thing.
But that
There's
would
no
make sense.
concept-
That would make sense why he got attacked by a hollow, because
Yeah, if you
Quincy's
bitch about
fight hollows.
People bitch about Superman, but this series is like if Superman also trained as Batman and got Wonder Woman's magic powers and got a Green Lantern. Like, this is like he has to be everything. Ichigo can't be all concepts at once. He has to be every concept in this fucking universe.
Which also makes like all the side characters seem less important to me because it's like, oh, we have a Quincy character, he's different, and it's like, oh, but Ichigo's also a Quincy.
Yeah.
It's like when writers are like, Superman's faster than the Flash, and I'm like, then why does the Flash exist on the Justice League?
Yeah, it is literally like giving Superman all the powers of like Flash, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern.
He basically has all their powers except Martian Manhunter. It's like
So the last interesting thing about this, which is what we're going to get into, which I included for them to read, is that there's only one. It starts as one villain in this arc. It's Tsukishima. It's this guy. I love this guy so much. He's another cool, like, it's a Byakuya clone where he's like, I'm too cool and I'm really calm and I'm just like, I got long black hair.
But he's more smug. He's kind of like a mix of Byakuya
And Aizen,
Snake Eye.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, of Gin. Maybe.
Gene. Like he's kind of sluggish about like the way he acts.
I could see that. And so the arc starts with Ichigo like doesn't want to join with Execution and learn how to be a Fullbringer and stuff because he doesn't trust them. And then, well, Glasses Quincy is out one time patrolling. He gets attacked by Tsukishima, this main villain. And then it calls Ichigo into action because he's like, I want to protect people because he gets like, mortally wounded. He almost dies. And so Ichigo goes and joins up with Execution. And the whole arc is about that they want him to be strong so that they can funnel their powers into him and return back to being humans, all of the Fullbringers. Because they're like, having like fake hollow powers kind of sucks. We just want to be normal people. So we want you to get stronger, so we'll give you our powers, and then that will bring you back to being a Shinigami again, like essentially the same level. And I have to say, Ichigo's Fullbringer is so stupid. It's just his old sword from like before, basically.
I noticed that. I was like,
I shoot blades out, and you're like, cool, great way to use Ichigo Kubo. Give him a completely new power and make it indistinguishable from the last.
it also negates like his previous power because he made his sword small to be stronger or faster, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
So it's like he. Like, why did he change? I'm like, never mind. Forget it.
I love that because you're at the same point where I am, where it's just like sometimes you're just like, this is dumb. I wish I could reason it out. I'm not gonna waste my time with this.
Yeah.
And so Tsukishima's thing is, as he goes through, like he sees Orihime one time, and that's also why this arc's good too, is because it returns Orihime back to being fun for a majority of it, which is really nice.
Cool.
It has like their old friend like Taki back too. But he sees Orihime and he stabs through her, and you're like, oh no, she got killed or something. But his sword doesn't leave any wounds on you, which is really bizarre.
Oh, that makes sense because that happens later.
Yes, and as it's going on,
he stabs somebody, and everyone's just like, "Oh, you!" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Wait a second.
I thought it was like a betrayal moment when that happened.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, and so it's really interesting because there's this mystery around just like one central villain, which is really nice. Rather than like, here's a cast of characters you got to pay attention to. Instead of like, who is this guy? He's really strong. Execution wants to fight him, and they explain he used to be a former member of it. And so the part that we're going to get to is when Ichigo finally gets his Fullbringer powers back in full. So he returns home, and this is just this is my favorite part in like almost all Bleach because it is the ultimate, like, I love despair in a lot of manga and like anime. I love that feeling of just like ultimate dread.
So why don't you like this fucking manga? Because that's all they keep playing up all the fucking time. Like,
The
they
thing
feel
is-
bad if Ichigo suck my
No.
dick.
They want to bring up despair for a lot of it, but a lot of the times like Ichigo's too dumb to be like, well, like when Ukiura was beating the shit out of him, he's like, I know you're stronger, I'm still gonna beat you. It's like,
Oh, is that why you like it? Is that like you really especially hate Ichigo because he's always like he's always dumbly stoic, like never even like flinches on.
Yeah, like he doesn't even like process things correctly. Whereas here, you actually get to see him like terrified and his like mind blown because he shows up to his house and Tsukishima, the main villain of this arc, is just hanging out here, and then his sisters are both like, "Hey, look who is over! It's Su-chan," and they're like, "Oh, he hasn't changed a bit," and he's like, "Hey, am I being too much trouble stopping by?" And Ichigo's like, "What the fuck?"
He says to Taki him, and his sisters are like, "What are you doing? That's our best friend."
And then the friends come over, and they're all like, "Hey, Shuchan's here. We're all here to hang out. We brought dinner.
Yeah.
We can call Chad and Orihime to come over too." And Tsukushima calls Orihime. He's like, "Yeah, you should come over. I'm at Ichigo's house."
And so he throws him against the wall. And he's like, "What did you do?" And immediately they rush over again. They're like, "Are you okay?" And it's like, you have to, like, Taki, you have to apologize to him for, like, hitting him. I don't know what you're so angry about. Just, like, what's wrong with you? And they're all like, they have no idea why he's doing this.
It's a great shot of every family member and friend saying, "Ichigo, Oni-chan, what's wrong with you? You're acting really weird." And he's watching all of their shocked faces, just being like, "Oh my god, am I going crazy? Like, what's happening?"
Yeah, so rather than just like continue to fight like, "Oh, I'm Ichigo, I'll just fight back no matter what," he flees. He runs away because he has no clue what's going on. And then he meets this is like a filler character that's here. It's the Unagi lady. This is the boss he works for. She just has big boobs. That's her thing.
I noticed that. Her boobs are bigger than Orihime's by a considerable margin.
Whatever. Orihime has pretty big boobs.
Yeah, but like this one, like...
She also wears tighter clothes, too.
Yeah, like... maybe it's because her shirt like emphasizes it's like a U up. I don't know. Never mind.
She's very busty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, he feels comforted by her because she's like the motherly figure in this. And then
she shoves his face in her boobs.
Okay, that's what. Oh, that's what. Because like that's what made me think that because when they draw it, the art's so shit at this point. They draw like she's wearing boob socks. That's what made me think of it.
Yeah.
She has boob socks basically.
And then at the door is Tsukishima, and she's like, "Hey, look, Tsukishima came by to pick you up." And then he runs away again, and then he runs into like the leader of execution, Ginjo. And he's this cool guy with like this what is that kind of coat called that has like the furry neckline?
It's like the squall coat.
Yeah, he wears a squall coat.
I really have to say, when we talked about how nothing in his art like made sense or whatever, a lot of times like the composition of some of these panels, like as I'm going through it, like these are atrocious. Like when it turns out the big boob lady is also friends with the evil bad guy. Like they're all the way to the right for no reason. The whole left hand page is blank. Like the art is so terrible. Like it is offensively bad to me at this point.
That's actually the top left is like completely empty and it's just taking up space.
Oh man.
And so he explains that Tsukishima has now brainwashed the entire group of execution. And it's like, damn, that's brutal. And then I skip ahead to like when they're fighting inside of this one like abandoned building where he was at. And Orihime is healing Tsukishima and like helping him because they're friends now. And Ichigo's like, "I can't believe this, like, why are you doing this?" And then Chad's like punching at him and he's like, I wasn't training to get stronger, to give you my powers so you could beat up on Tsukishima. Like, this isn't what I trained for. And they even explain, it's like, remember he was there, he saved Rukia, he was there when we defeated Aizen. It was only possible because of him.
I love that. They're like, he's been in every story we've been in, and he was crucial in saving us. How could you be betraying our friend?
Yeah. And so then Tsukishima explains to him his power, and I love this ability because this is ultimate gaslighting. This is such an asshole ability.
Yeah. Is that what you call the Wikipedia entry, ultimate gaslighting? Instead of ultimate hypnosis, ultimate gaslighting.
His sword is called the Book of the End, and what he does is when he stabs you, he doesn't change your memory. He literally inserts himself like a bookmark into like a book into your past. So he's like, I can put myself anywhere. So I was always there in like your history and stuff.
I think this is such a cool power.
It is.
Really
yeah.
This would have been a better final boss than what we got. Like
the real final boss were the friends you apparently made along the way.
And so it's really cool because he explains to him, but the past they've experienced and like the past that Ichigo's experienced are two different things. And now basically he's walked along with them all their life. Like, he's been by their side. Every one of his friends has Tsukishima as their friend now, and only Ichigo doesn't. So that's why it's like he's all alone, living this life without Tsukishima being inserted into his life.
And if there's any theme to Ichigo as a character, it's that he fights for his friends. Like, that's his only fucking thing. So, like, if you're gonna have a final arc, like, the anime did it right. End on this arc, because that makes more sense. And on something with Ichigo's friend being away from him.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool, like, because it's like, what do you do about that? It's like, I'm just permanently a part of their life now. Like, that's it. Like, I can put myself in anywhere into their history and stuff. And Ichigo goes to attack him again, and Orihime puts up a shield, and he's just like, he's screaming. He's like, why did I even get these powers? And then, I cut it off there. It's all these guys read, and it's always sucks when Darryl comes away, because I did find this part engaging. It's very good setup for a plot. So what happens is he's not even the main villain that Ichigo ends up like fighting at the very end of this. There's a kind of cool twist that is revealed, where basically Tsukishima, if he puts his sword into you after he already attacked you like once, he can remove himself from your life fully. And so what he did is he removed himself from all of execution, so they would think that he's the enemy, when actually, like, he wanted them to... It's very bizarre. But he removed himself from execution so that they could see him as an enemy, so that they needed to recruit Ichigo and train him. And then at the very end, he puts himself back into execution to be like, hey, we were all friends, and the reason we've been doing this is because we want to steal your powers at the very end of this. As soon as you get strong enough, because, like, he's the strongest Shinigami and stuff, as soon as you get strong enough, we're just going to absorb your powers, and then we're going to be, like, God tier.
So who's the final boss?
And so they do that, and then he's left with no powers, and they're like, all right, see you later. And in his, like, final moment of despair, he gets stabbed through the chest again. But it's a callback to when Rukia, she's like, hey, take my power, and then he, like, stabs himself on her sword. And it's Rukia stabbing him again. And she got the rest of the captains to give, like, you know, a fraction of their power to put it into a sword to restore him to being the Shinigami status.
Because the entire time? Goddamn, whatever.
Well, I guess it took a year. I don't know. It took a year and a half or something. And so... Then
this is a fucking filler arc. Goddamn.
Yeah.
Nothing,
so then you have the Soul Society captains now fight the new friends that you ended up like getting to know really well. That now they're all like, you know, quote unquote villains. It's more that they're all following Ginjo, the squall guy, and he's basically an asshole that just like hates Soul Society because he was the very first substitution Soul Reaper, and then they removed his powers because he was killing other Shinigami to steal their powers because he's greedy. And so you have like all the captains fight like one-on-one against their guys, and Byakuya fights against Tsukishima, and it is the most interesting fight of like that arc. It's really interesting because Byakuya is really OP, and you get to see how Tsukishima like fights against other people because he clashes swords with Byakuya, and then he says to him, like, he's like, guess what, bitch? When we clash swords, I inserted myself into your sword, so now I know everything your sword can do.
Alright, that's
And he reveals to him, it's like, my stuff works on inanimate objects, so I inserted myself, like, my history, into the battlefield we're fighting to alter it while we're fighting.
we can never bitch about fucking comic book powers ever again.
Again, I've said it a million times, though, it's the way the story takes itself, like, this from the beginning was like, this is crazy over the top when you're like, this is real life Chicago or Metropolis. And then
when we talk, the reason, like, the perspective you should always remember, like, we're not talking about like the movie canon. We're talking about usually 60s campy stories, like the 60s.
No, I mean,
series.
60s stuff. I'm never like, this isn't realistic. This is the 60s. But like, it's more modern stories that try to take itself really seriously, but then they have shit like that. Like, nothing in Bleach ever was like, this is serious, real life Earth stuff.
Yeah. No one goes to jail.
No cops show up and try to stop Byakuya.
So him and Byakuya fight, and he ends up like learning all Byakuya's moves, so he knows to stay close so that Byakuya's petals can't reach him. And he's like, I know literally everything about you, so you can't beat me. So Byakuya's like, all right, I'm going to learn a new move on the spot then and beat you with it. And that's how he does it. And that's the most interesting fight. Ichigo fights Ginjo, the squall guy, and their fight is super boring. It's like the same thing as Aizen. It's just like, they're literally throwing Getsuga Tenchos at each other. You're like, okay, it's just like two of you guys doing it. Glasses Quincy does help him out, though, which is, like, the only unique thing about it. But they beat him, and then all the Fullbringers end up, like, retreating and running away, and it's a very self-enclosed arc. Like, it even ends on, like, a good note with Tsukishima, like, crying over Ginjo's death, because Ginjo had, like...
You say Grimjo?
Yeah, the names are blurred together.
I'm surprised you fucking kept them together for so long. Like, I'm done. Like, I forget everyone's name after.
Ends on like a cool note of like Tsukishima weeping over Ginjo's death, because Ginjo was their leader and everyone felt for him, and he's the only one that dies out of this. And they all they're like, but you taught us to like be a group and to stick together and to pick up the pieces and to keep moving. So it's even like it's motivational for these villains to like go out and be better people. That it wasn't just like, it's sort of like Aizen being like he doesn't care about the Iran cars, and they don't really care about him that much, and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, there's camaraderie there, which was nice.
All right, I'm going to watch the anime now. I'm going back to that camp.
So that's the filler arc. I hope you guys enjoyed your 30 minutes of filler, because now we're getting into the Quincy arc, or the 1,000-Year War arc, or I forget what other 3 names.
So after 30 minutes, you're fighting against the actual arc we're supposed to be covering. This is the actual final arc.
Can I tell you in advance? I think the main villain of this is cool, so fuck you guys.
I
Really?
think he sucks. I think this arc sucks, except for a few good fights.
I feel nothing towards this.
I like bits and pieces of it. I'm just like, by this point, I was so fatigued reading it. I was like, sure, whatever. Like, I wasn't even trying to think about things. I was like, let's do this.
It's important to note before we really get into it that as for the three of us that aren't Darryl, there were many times where Darryl was like, I'm skipping 60 chapters of this. So I think it's important to note when you talk about fatigue, if we don't feel that fatigue, there's a clear reason why.
Yeah.
I felt fatigued.
Oh, I did too, but I just mean like, fuck you, Phil, pretty much.
For liking this villain? Why fuck me?
No, I'm kidding.
We'll get into it.
But just remember to describe. He looks like he's designed. I thought he was the fucking Ichigo's sword for a second, the spear of the sword. Except with a figure.
He is. It's revealed as a twist that Ichigo's sword. Remember how Ichigo's sword wasn't actually a sword? It was like a combination of his hollow and that the Kubo, the self-insert character.
Right, so
and then it's revealed that the self-insert guy, the guy with the cool glasses, is an embodiment of him because Ichigo's a Quincy. Ah.
So does that mean this guy literally is the self-insert of Kubo? Because
I guess.
Because he's like, his design sucks. Like Aizen, at least when he took off his glasses, he looks like a villain. This guy looks like a fucking.
He looks like a king, which is cool.
He looks like a guy in a trench coat and mustache.
He's also got like that cool mustache that goes into his sideburns.
And the cool
also,
the cool cloak.
He feels like a final boss to me, especially like like the art really kills a lot of any menace to this could have happened, because even until the Aizen fight at the end, even when stuff was dragging on, at least stuff still looked cool. But like when he starts going to hyper form, all the fucking artist does is make everyone more and more black. Like it's like, I'm gonna save on fucking drawing anything. I'm just gonna make more and more black to this fucking page.
It's like I say, he's just like spilling ink everywhere, and he's like, boom, that's it. My work done for a week.
One of his guys literally is like, I just spill ink all over the page.
Yeah.
I also think a big difference between him and Aizen is this guy has extra eyes out.
Ooh,
you're right.
Good one.
Because he's got extra eyes.
Not yet. He
Spoilers.
He will. Spoilers.
So the Quincy basically are like a German army. They wear like German suits from like World War I or World War II.
I do still think that all like those kind of design choices are very cool. That each area has like this different like cultural iconography.
I liked it a lot too.
On paper, it's really cool. I didn't catch that while reading this because it doesn't play into anything at all.
But I mean, the names are so different.
I mean, a lot of their dialogue, their terms, their names, and their
I know, but I mean, like in terms of what action to play out, like I never noticed that.
Yeah, but setting matters. It's not always what's in the plot.
Yeah.
Like
but like if it's not playing into the plot whatsoever, it doesn't matter. Literally, like I didn't notice.
I think it matters, but I think it matters a lot to differentiate.
Did you not care about the hollows being Spanish?
No, but I felt like that mattered more because the designs, at least German design, like you have to make it like more explicit than this.
They're wearing like Nazi uniforms.
Yeah, I don't think it's not. I think
they do. I didn't notice. Like the art is also.
They have like armbands.
I didn't notice it. Like I'm not gonna.
They're constantly throwing like it's the Vandenreich and the Stern.
Did Nazis wear fucking dresses? They're wearing like fucking dresses here.
Those are cloaks.
Did Nazis wear cloaks?
Oh, no.
No, like no. Then they fucked up. Like that's the first image we got of them and their cloaks, so they fucked up their fucking presentation. No, fuck you guys.
I don't know. I think it's pretty clear. I liked
I
it.
didn't catch it at all, and the art didn't help either.
So this was such a hard thing to include in the beginning because I actually jump a lot of chapters mid thing without telling you guys because you get so little story bits before it's like, here's Ichigo meeting. He literally meets a new soul, like a new Shinigami, a new Soul Reaper, and then they do nothing. I'm like, cool, great introduction. Fantastic. And so basically I introduce these guys because you see the king and they go and report to him and he's like, he just blows off the arm of one of his guys because he's a giant asshole. He's the same. I'm trying to think about what his personality is like. He's just an asshole, kind of. Like, he's like the calm, very like, almost like Aizen where he's leaning in the chair, resting on his cheek.
Yeah.
This reminds me like he's trying to take Aizen. But like the reason why Aizen worked for like he stopped working after a while. The reason why he worked at all is because you had that good twist from being the bad guy. You got to know him beforehand. This guy, he's just like this is just the same scene where Grimjow and the other guys almost start fighting and they stop because Aizen like talks like it's just that, but like we gotta up the ante because we gotta make this guy cooler, and it works on Phil, but I think it's fucking stupid. Like, oh wow, it's so cool that this guy's more bloody than Aizen. I'm like, this guy has no personality whatsoever.
He's a king. I mean, basically,
Phil likes kings.
He's a king. He's a kingly
He
guy.
He does say I don't like fights, and I also don't like fights. So
Yeah, even though like
I root for this guy.
Yeah, he lives up to that principle in this fucking.
Yeah, he says that, and then it's just all fights.
He's waiting in like this alternate dimension. I don't even know where they are.
Who cares?
And he's waiting until Ichigo he goes to Hueco Mundo because what they start doing is the army, the Sternritter, his army invades Hueco Mundo and just starts killing a bunch of hollows. And so that catches Ichigo's attention. Ichigo goes in there with Hat and Clogs and Orihime and Chad. And then he's like, boom, that's great. Now that Ichigo's in there, let's go invade Soul Society. And I didn't include this one chapter, but they even go to Soul Society and they tell the head captain guy, they're like, oh, we're going to invade you. And then they teleport out, which is so dumb.
I forgot his first costume. It literally is all black. They show up a full panel when he reveals himself, the king character. He's wearing all black, like he's like Dracula, but all black. Like it is. He just loves black so much in this fucking comic.
Yeah,
he does.
Maybe Kubo accidentally bought like too much ink and was just trying to like write it off.
I imagine more. It's like when they made the Batman animated series, they had black paper and they drew over it. Yeah. And he bought black paper by accident. And he's like, I gotta make this white ink last. Gotta do as little as possible.
Yeah.
And then I included this conversation between the head captain guy and the Soul Society Nazi doctor dude. And basically what happened is when they started killing hollows, the Nazi doctor he went and gathered, remember how like a Soul Society is feudal Japan and on the outskirts of the city is like the poor districts and stuff? Mm-hmm. He ended up gathering 28,000 poor people and killing them because he's like, well, we got to balance because, the more hollows that die it tips the balance. So I got to kill a whole bunch of people, which is, again, another great thing about him is he goes behind everyone's back and he's like, I had to kill them because of balance or something like that. And the head captain's really, the old man is upset at him for doing this, but he's like, hey, I wouldn't have had to kill all these people if 1,000 years ago, you had killed the king of this place. And I'm trying to, what do you guys, we gotta agree on a term for the king, unless you just want to call him the
Let's
king.
just call him the king.
They say it in here. Don't they say Yuhabaha or something?
I'm not gonna phone call Yuhabaha. He's the king. Fuck you.
It is like, Yuhabaha, but it's like, it's the Japanese style. It's like, what is it supposed to be? Because it's a German pronunciation of a Hebrew word written in Japanese.
That's what I thought. It reminded me of Yahweh.
It is, yeah. It's Yahweh, but it's like Yavak, I think, maybe?
So we're making a presentation, so we have to do two things. We have to have a name that we can all remember and pronounce correctly, and one that our audience will remember clearly. So it's not going to be Yuhabaha, whatever the fuck it is. It's going to be the king. He's the king, that's it. We're done.
All right, sure. But anyway, his name is Yavak, or Yuhabaha, or Yuach.
I think it's really cool that he has God's name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Ichigo's stuck in Hueco Mundo, and he just beat like one of the head guys. And basically what the king's army is, his Sternritter, it's sort of like how there's like the Gotei 13, the 13 captains, and then there's Aizen's Espada, the top 10 guys. Yeah. The king has, how many letters are in the alphabet? 24, 26?
26.
He has 26 generals that he gives a letter to, which is their power.
Which alphabet? Which fucking alphabet? Because which alphabet?
American.
The Latin.
Why would
Or
the
German.
Latin? The German. Okay, that makes
We
sense.
all use the same. All Latin alphabets, like German, French. We all use the same alphabet.
They don't use any other extra letters.
They put umlauts and stuff, but
Those
But-
count as extra letters. I think this does not seem like bullshit.
Those don't count here as extra letters.
That's bullshit. Okay, they already
no,
fucked up.
literally it is the Roman, like the Latin alphabet is the same. You can look this
I
up.
know, but they sometimes I know in Polish they consider different letters sometimes when you have like an umlaut or something like that.
But in German, it's not.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering. So
English
like,
is a Germanic language.
so English is the exact same thing as German then? Is that so? Because if you just say it's the same as German, I'm like okay, but is it the same as English? I'm like that's bullshit.
Yeah, it's the same. You don't consider umlauts to
There are
be
26
separate.
letters in the German alphabet. Just
Okay.
look it up.
Okay. Anyway, so he just defeated the guy that's like letter J. And as this is going on, I skipped a lot of when the Vandenreich actually invade Soul Society because it's a lot of them showing up, and it's great. Kubo introduces literally like 4 new characters that all get killed within the first chapter when they get invade, which is like it's him not wanting to kill his pet characters and stuff. But he does kill a handful of old characters, and by a handful I mean like 3. And some of them are ones that it's like I was like, who is this guy again? And so the Quincy's are killing a whole bunch of Soul Society. While this is going on, they're hoping that Ichigo will come back and save them. And so as he's like flying to get out of Hueco Mundo, they exposit all over him everything that's about their deal. They have like powers that can transform just like the Hollows could. They can transform to like, their ultimate form. They have Blut, which is they can change how their blood runs through the veins, whether it's defensive or offensive, which is a cool idea that just rarely gets brought up. I think it never gets brought up again, like after this, other than just like, oh, I see you were using Blut. And then the last thing is that they all have like these medals that can steal people's Bankais. So for instance, Byakuya gets his Bankai stolen, the big dog guy gets his Bankai stolen, another lady gets her Bankai stolen. So you're like, oh, this is like getting real because now these people can't even they can use their swords, their first form of it, but they can't use their second form, the Bankai. And they explain to him, it's like, they can't steal your Bankai, which we saw at the beginning of the arc. A guy tried to steal and it's like, why isn't this working? And it's because Ichigo's too OP. It actually doesn't actually get explained. It's just like too strong. Or it's because he's part Quincy.
Yeah, and later on, the higher level guys are like, I'm the only one who can steal your power.
When you're Quincy who fucks a Hollow, fucks Shootbringer, you become a God tier combo.
Yeah, and so Ichigo's trying to fly over there, and then the guy that he thought he killed, Kurgiopi, isn't actually dead, and he's like, check out my ability, J is the jail. He just locks him inside of a prison, and he's like, boom. And then Ichigo, as he's stuck there, all he has to hear through the communication device that he has to talk to Soul Society, just like them screaming as everyone gets massacred inside the headquarters.
And he's just stuck in like Swords of Revealing Light from Yu-Gi-Oh! Which is
And he's like freaking out and like slamming his sword against the prison walls. And then the guy that jailed him ends up getting killed by someone. They're like, who is this? And literally for 100 chapters, it doesn't reveal who it is, but it's Grimjow who's back alive.
I do think it's so hilarious how every single arc, not only do they do the traditional shonen, like here's my 10 captains thing, but they literally do, like you said, they all have a Grimjow / Renji character. They all have a Byakuya. They're just like, I'm the reckless, angry one.
Yeah,
And,
I'm cool and calm and powerful.
and before, where you're like excited to see the Bankai, or some of us were, now it's like, I'm like interested in like what the letter is. Like, oh, M, what is that going to stand for? And
I could not give a fuck less what the fucking letter was. I really got sick of them repeating the same plots over and over again. Can we have like different character types in this fucking story arc, please?
This is why I was saying that, where I was like, I think the Fullbringer arc, you like it more if you're tired of Bleach being this. Whereas like if you like Bleach being this arc is like the Hollow arc just amped up to 11 now. So while this is going on, like everyone's fighting, and then it's a really interesting scene where Byakuya is fighting, and then he basically accepts that he's like gonna die, but he still decides to fight anyway. And
I like how the Darryl said just cut away saying that Byakuya died, and then he says a note. he's not dead. So I'm like, why'd you cut away to this, Darryl? Like, what was it?
Because look at how he drew him. What happens to Byakuya is Byakuya gets his entire Bankai slammed into him so hard it pushes him through a wall. And remember, his Bankai's 1,000,000 sword petals. And
there's just blood splattered in like a corpse shape.
He should be dead.
He's
still alive
how
after
can
this.
you? How can like everyone's power level is so above like 1,000,000? How can you even say like this should happen? Like
because
probably,
characters do die in this, where they're like, oh, this guy, like one of the fan favorites, he gets killed early on in this, and he just stays. He doesn't stay dead. Actually,
how did Mimo what's her face survive being stabbed? How did all these characters survive? Like. How do each
the difference is like I can buy like being stabbed, like having 1,000,000 swords slammed into you to where you're just pulp.
What happened to you? I already forgot what happened to Ichigo. Didn't he die?
He got a hole in him.
Yeah, but he turned into a hollow, which brought him back to life, and then he. Whereas Byakuya, this just happens to him, and he doesn't die.
Everyone's so. This is like arguing whether Superman should have died from a punch like that. Like everyone's so above human.
My frustration is that Byakuya has a moment where he tells Ichigo, he's like, please, like, we never really liked each other when Ichigo arrives there. He's like, we never really liked each other, but please avenge me, avenge my family honor for me, even if you don't like me.
But they did that too. They faked out every character's death.
But I can see what Darryl's saying. Like you, even though everyone is really strong, there's certain things that you see like this is a killer thing. Like Superman does die to Doomsday and should die to Doomsday, even though he's Superman. It's like when you're up against something so strong, you should still die.
That's actually a good point too, because after our last episode in the Discord, people were like, "Oh, Ryan thinks it's dumb that he gets stabbed and then comes back, but he loves that Hal Jordan comes back." And to me, the difference is like Phil bringing up Superman getting killed by Doomsday still had emotional weight, and he didn't just like brush it off immediately and come back right away. There was still like a narrative arc to the death. The death had some sort of purpose. Yeah. Where when you just die and then 5 pages later, or like the thing that I was complaining about last episode,
it's like it looks like you die, but you're not dead.
I think
you get stabbed through the heart and then you just get up. It's like, what weight did that stab have? It's just shock. It's not narrative weight at all.
If we read like maybe if I read like all 1,000,000 fucking pages of Bleach, maybe I could see where Darryl is coming from. I think the fact that we have so many the clear as day deaths on page, and Darryl said they're still alive after this. Like makes every death feel like it doesn't matter. Like even the characters that never come back, I'm pretty sure they're still alive somewhere. Like I don't buy any death.
So for you, it's the fact that like you're at this point where it's like no one can really die. You don't buy that anyone dies in this.
Yeah.
For me, like I was reading it, and when he says his final words to Ichigo, I'm like, this is a good point. Sort of like with Momo, this is a good point to kill this character because they fulfilled their purpose, they lived a good life, and they serve like as a sad stepping stone, and they raise the stakes. You're like, we gotta kill these guys.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, Byakuya doesn't die here, so it's like, all right, whatever. And what ends up happening is the king is facing off against the old man, the head of Soul Society. And this is where, like, some of the Bankais start to get really, like, out there and stuff, because the old man's Bankai is 4 stages to it. And there's another guy whose Bankai is going to be, like, 4 stages where he's like, I can do this and do this and do this. Like, his sword is as hot as the sun, and I forget what one of the other things are. But then he's like, I can also raise the army of the dead to come fight you.
Yeah, I love that. They're like, the translation they gave is grand array of 10 trillion dead and buried by flame.
I love this scene until the very end where they had dumb twist. But this is why I was not interested in Bankai that much, because I'm just a level power. I could do more swords or whatever. But this is basically more like I have magic powers. Like if Bankai was presented more like you get a magic power, that's a better way to set up. That's basically what this old man's power is. He can raise the dead, and I'm like, that's fucking cool.
And not only the dead, he raises your friends who have died and makes them try to kill you. So as the king is fighting him, you see these, like, the skeletons are drawn in all black. Like Sly and Darryl said that, like, the art is just like everything's black. So these skeletons, and I think it does look cool.
This is one. I keep mocking it. There are many pages where it does work. You still black does really work well.
So there's like a skeleton army basically shambling, like crawling, I should say, up to get the king, and the head of the Soul Society is like, look who you just smashed, look what skull you just smashed, look at their face. And then he starts to see all his dead friends. And so you see one of the skeletons, and then it flashes to the living person he used to know, and it's just he's being dragged down into hell by all his friends.
And then he's like, oh, you were unable to steal my Bankai. That's why you couldn't do this, because I'm so strong. And he's like, this is the end for you. And then the king starts freaking out. He's like, no, I can't be stopped by the likes of this. So he starts to rush at him. And then the old man's like, all the suffering can't compare to the bitterness and hatred of all the Shinigami you've killed. And so then he uses just this move that just evaporates like his midsection and arm. And it looks like he kills the king, and then steam rises off of him as it starts raining the old man, because his Bankai makes him really hot.
Again, cool art here. I will say, like, I do agree with Sly that in general there's a decline.
Yeah.
But there are still cool scenes.
There's a lot less effort. He keeps trying to go for like more style using all the black ink.
Yeah.
And then the king's like, I wasn't strong enough. I'm sorry. Yuhabak-sama, and you're like, wait, he's saying the king's name, and then we get the
great.
best exposition dump.
Oh, so there's so much black in this fucking comic. Now we get people in blackface.
Yeah, I didn't get why they were.
So they have a flashback to these two babies being born.
Choice.
The babies being born are twins, and the nurse and doctor are in blackface. I have no fucking idea why they're in blackface. But the babies are so identical, these two twins, that no one could tell them apart. And eventually they couldn't even tell themselves apart. The names are Lloyd and Royd. And this looks like...
And wait, their last name is Royd, too. So it's Lloyd Royd and Royd Royd.
So it's Mario, and Luigi Mario from Super Mario Bros. And this is what I mean by the art getting really bad. If anyone knows One Punch Man started out as a webcomic. The art on Lloyd and Royd looks like the One Punch Man webcomic before it became an actual manga.
Yeah,
it is so bad.
Yeah, and so they realize they're not just identical twins of each other. Their powers, they both have copying powers, and so Lloyd can copy someone else's powers and their image, like how they look, and Royd can copy their memories and spirit, and also how they look.
Yeah, one copy's powers, one copy's memories.
Right. When the King of Soul Society hears him apologizing to the king, he turns around and he's like, Who do you apologize to?
Yeah, the old man's like, who are you apologizing to? And he turns around, and then, like, a building blows up, and then the king comes out. And then he shows it's Royd Lloyd on the ground. And he's like, no. Stern Ritter, why be yourself? And
Royd Lloyd also looks like fucking One Punch Man. Like, is he trying to do homage to One Punch Man? Like, his design
he's
is
a
One
bald
Punch
guy
Man's.
with an eye on his head.
Yeah.
And this is such a great twist because the only introduction you get, you see Lloyd beforehand, and it's in this one panel, and it's literally Kenpachi saying, yeah, I killed this guy who turned into me, and that was it. You're like, oh, okay. And so it's revealed that he has a twin brother, and the twin brother was acting as the king all along, and it's so dumb. This is the most comic book thing in Bleach that I can think of.
So it's not as bad as I thought it was, because I thought this was not set up at all. But that's still fucking stupid.
I mean, one frame of it being set up isn't a great setup, especially when the character's dead anyway. So you're like, oh, cool, Lloyd died. I guess that was Stern Ritter why.
And also the series has so many things that never pay off whatsoever, ever, that, like, you're never going to remember that fucking point.
Yeah. Also, what I was wondering is, when this was written in Japanese, how are their names differentiated? Because there's only Ra for
I think
Roy.
it's a joke. It's probably. This whole thing feels like an homage to One Punch Man. Like the art looks like a One Punch Man.
No,
homage.
that's why I'm thinking, Phil, that it's specifically you're supposed to know it as Japanese. That could be pronounced L or R. So one of them's L and the other's R.
Okay, because I'm like, there's no actual differentiation in the Japanese characters for L and R, so you might be right that the joke is that they have literally the same name and it could be pronounced either way.
This feels like not even like a season, like the season 1 era Bleach joke. This feels like a different manga altogether, like One Punch Man joke put into a serious fight in Bleach. Like this, it's weird that.
But it's not even a joke. It's played seriously. It's like, this is an actual plot twist that this guy had a twin. This garbage guy had a twin that acted as the
actually,
kid.
I just looked it up. They're both Roido.
Yeah, but like their names are Lloyd Royd, which is a dumb twist, a dumb name, and the art is so crappy here. I have to imagine it's on purpose. Like it feels like
it's not.
I have to. It feels like what they're trying to go for, like a webcomic kind of art style. It looks so shitty. Like it feels like a joke. Like it's trying.
So
I
keep saying it looks shitty. I don't think this looks too much worse than the Hollow arc.
I think it looks way worse. Like that. Why is the Lloyd and Royd all the way to the bottom of the panel for no fucking reason? Why is it cut off? Like the framing is terrible. Like it is way. I like the line work is so much sloppier. I feel it really offends me how bad this art is. Like that's probably the reason why I really turn against this, because This feels like I'm reading. I've read webcomics with better art than this. It's like really offensive that this is a published manga. Like I'm really like upset about this.
I do agree that it's worse, but I didn't notice it as
Me
like
either.
that much worse.
I wasn't offended.
But I also don't look for things like the layout and stuff like that like you do, Sly.
Yeah.
So he wasted all his power killing a fucking nobody.
Yeah, and then the king explains that what he was doing while this was all going on, all of his guys were killing people, is he went to go see Aizen at the underground prison. And it's like he wanted to recruit Aizen. He's like, come join me, but Aizen refused. And so you're like, oh shit, like it's a fun moment because you're like, yes, Aizen still at least has some stake in this because he's so powerful. But then the old man tries to fight the king, and so the king seals his Bankai, like he steals it. And it's like, boom, I am strong enough that I'm able to steal it because I'm OP. And then he calls down his sword from heaven. It's this glowing white sword. Again,
It's just fucking white. He just
doesn't
drew a
have to
sword.
draw anything.
He drew a short sword. I can't believe how fucking lazy this art is.
And then he says, farewell, old man, and he kills the old man.
And it's a fucking Ultimates panel. It's a full-page splash page of just his face. Like he's trying to do homage to Ultimates here.
No, if it was the Ultimates, he would be like, farewell, asshole.
They start saying that later on, by the way. They start calling it's probably the translation, but they just start saying
It
fucker
is.
later on.
Yeah.
It's the translation.
Yeah.
It's always the translation. And so then what happens that I skipped out is Ichigo shows up, and then he's like, I'm going to fight you. And then the Byakuya of the Quincy's, Hashwalth, he takes out his sword, and he breaks Ichigo's Bankai immediately in one hit. He's like, no, you're not. And then the king's like, oh, let's leave because I have to go rest. And it's revealed later that when a Bankai, a sword can be broken in its normal state or Shikai state, but if it's broken in Bankai, it's broken forever. And so Ichigo's like, oh, all right, I guess I have no sword now. So then he has to go up to where the Soul King is, like the Soul King's palace in the sky, where it's just where you meet new Soul Reapers. They're like the top 5. They're the best ones of the best. And because they protect the Soul King, and Ichigo has to get his sword reforged by the guy who made Soul Reaper swords. And it gives you like the history of like, I'm the guy that made Soul Reaper swords. I'm the guy that came up with the Soul Reaper swords. And like, I'm the guy, I forget what some of the other ones are.
I'm surprised you remember how many you fucking do. Goddamn.
Anyway, while this is going on, the king, back at the king's place, he's like, hey, guess what? Stern Ritter, which is like his spot of his top people. He's like, I have something to announce. We have a new member in our ranks. It's Glasses Quincy. No, Uryu, what are you doing here?
You barely included him, so I don't know how to feel.
Question.
What?
Is this the fucking big boob motherly lady, is she a Quincy? Because this girl in the crowd looks exactly like her.
No, that's Bambietta. How dare you?
How dare I'm sorry.
Bambietta.
No, that big boob lady is never introduced again. She's gone. That last scene that we read of her is the last time she's ever introduced.
That's what she's working with the bad guy.
Well, it's not working with him. Everyone's working with him because they're all in his memories.
I know, but it's just funny. Like you never get to see her in a normal state ever again. Just so brainwashed.
Yeah.
So great here. He says, here's Uryu. He's our new member. And they're like, who the hell is this guy? And then he's like,
Yeah, not just
Yeah.
my new member. He's now my successor. You're like,
yeah.
what?
I love that he's in front of all these characters who I have no fucking idea who they are. Like this person has like spike mouth and stuff, and they're all like,
So question. I have to admit, I kind of like Ryan. I zoned out. Like clearly, I zoned out on the fucking German imagery thing.
Yeah.
Do they ever explain why he became his successor?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll get to that when we get there.
Okay.
Oh, wait, why he became the successor?
Yes.
No.
Okay. There we go.
I thought you were saying why Uryu joined up, but no.
I was like,
explained.
this is gonna be some kind of plot to root out something, but
You
it
would,
never.
you would think that it would have something
Especially
to do with,
because
like, rooting out
Quincy's
who's not loyal.
Yeah, there are other Quincy's who are like, I don't trust you. I know you're not really with us, but I don't know. Okay.
Yeah. And so they're like, everyone's pissed off about this because like this guy just shows up and he's like, boom, now he's my second command. You get Bazby, he's the Renji. He has a mohawk,
I love that.
and it's a great name. And he's
Is that
he's
seriously
upset
design?
about
He just looks like I think that's why the German thing didn't work for me. It's because everyone just looks like guys. They don't look like fucking final bosses at all.
Yeah.
This guy's
Well,
just
they
a guy
don't have
with a
the
mohawk.
cool like hollow skull imagery.
Exactly.
On, like,
That's
their
the
faces and
best comparison. The hollows all look like the hollow imagery did so much to make them look well designed and imposing. These guys just look like people. Like they should be.
BG9 is a knight. He's got like he's a German knight, you know.
For the record, I laughed there because BG9 is a knight that uses a Gatling gun. I don't mention that, but you should know that.
But even like a knight, like do you make a knight as a final boss of an anime?
Maybe. It's happened before.
Usually, even if it is a knight, what happens is their arm fucking explodes out of its middle socket, and they grow like 10 times bigger. Like they become they're usually like they're like monsters in some way. Like I don't know.
So everyone's upset about this, and then it cuts away to like all of the Stern Order talking to each other. And
we should mention one of them looks like a fucking luchador.
Yeah, mask to mask.
Yeah, I did this so you guys can at least get a sense of like who all these guys are to see whether or not like you would like them, which clearly Sly like doesn't, but that's good because it shows you that it's like they're not as effective, these introductions. Mask to Masculine, I didn't include it. His power is amazing. He is a luchador. He fights using wrestling moves on guys, and what he does is he has this little guy named James, and the more James cheers for him, the stronger he gets. And if you kill James multiplies, and so he keeps cheering for him more and more, and then Masculine like takes off his clothes and he gets like super big. He just keeps growing larger and larger as they're cheering. It's really goofy.
I had this conversation when I was reading it. I should point it out. This whole thing, all the repeating characters over and over again, remind me a lot of Metal Gear Solid. How Hideo Kojima, when he first created Foxhound. Yeah, and there was like a big cool thing. Like you had this group of organization of bad guys, all with unique powers, and basically he kept repeating that concept of like Dead Cell with the Cobras, and everyone will admit like every time he redid it, it was worse and worse. And Foxhound was the best time he did it. So like, it's pretty much that kind of thing where it's just the same idea, like slowly getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I will say I keep defending it because you're hating on it really hard, but in the end, if Bleach, I would say Bleach would be good if it was 2/10 as big as it is. It goes on for so long, and there's just so much repetition that it can never be good because of that.
Yeah.
But like there are cool things in it. If this was like like I said, like 20% of the actual what it turned out to be.
I do love a lot of concepts here. It's just that when it gets to the main plot being dragged out, it becomes unbearable over time.
Yeah.
And so the two most important people here is Bosby. He's the guy with the mohawk. He's the Renji substitute.
And then the Byakuya.
And then the Byakuya guy, Hashwalth. He like has the exact same face as Byakuya. He's blonde, basically. Yeah. And his hair's not as long.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have like the cool beads in his hair either.
And also, what's interesting, I guess, here is that the king tells Uryu, I'm going to give you a letter. You're going to be letter A, the same as me. And it's like, what? He doesn't even know this guy.
Yep, and then...
Well, you would think if they're German, he should have some umlaut letters, right? Because those are different.
And his second-in-command, Hashwalth, has the letter B. Busby and this guy talk, and this is the only thing I'm going to explain about them, because I skip over they end up fighting each other. And you know how, like, all the rest of the...
To go back to the German imagery for a second, because Brian's making fun of the umlaut thing. Not only are they wearing cloaks most of the time, so it's not even relevant most of the time, also, the two main leaders of the Quincy's, the successor and the king, are now wearing junior uniforms, so they can't even hold that concept at all.
I just think that this style of cloak is a Western European thing.
I know, but yeah. I feel like it feels less like there probably is a theme going on here, but he's not even committing to it. He's like, I'm just gonna have a cloak because it's easier to draw cloaks. The main bad guy's gonna wear all black like Dracula because it's easier to draw that, and the Quincy's gonna keep wearing his Japanese style costume with a cloak on it because I'm too lazy to draw a new costume for him.
You know, I wouldn't contest that. It is easier to draw.
Wait, what? You don't think luchadors are a German
oh yeah,
aesthetic?
Okay, no, the concept's dead. It's a cool idea. He fucked it up.
And you do have King Do here, who's a Chinese guy.
Yeah,
whenever they're doing like these like elite guys, and they were like, here, they have this power. This guy has feet that are roller skates. It's like it always is gonna break the theme. Like even in the Iron Cars, even though they were all Spanish themed, or they were supposed to be, like there were people who were just like nothing to do with it.
Yeah. I would like to imagine like season 1, like you have all those demons, those powerful demons, like in the back of your mind, think about this luchador could go kick most of these characters' asses. This luchador is like a top tier specimen in this fucking universe.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Busby and Hashwalth. They're throughout the, you know how they always give you like backstory of the villains like before they die and stuff. This arc is a little bit different in that only Busby and Hashwalth get a, like, what they were like before any of this happened kind of a thing. And they have an interesting dynamic in that Busby was, like, back 1,000 years ago when the king was organizing the rest of his people to like first invade Soul Society. And that's when he failed and had to go into hiding for 1,000 years. But back 1,000 years ago when he did that, he was like destroying the countryside and like just killing whoever he wanted. And he killed Basby's family. And Basby was like,
Who the fuck is Basby?
he's the guy with the mohawk. He's the Renji of the Quincy's.
So call him Mohawk man. No fucking names for these guys.
No, Basby's a cool name. Basby.
But I'm not gonna remember it. I'm not gonna fucking remember it.
Oh, too bad.
I'm gonna start doing this when we read DC comics. I'll be like, I don't know, Cape Guy.
You fucking do it anyway.
I use their names.
I respect them. Like, fuck you. Like, come on. These are such...
Anyway, Basby, he ends up getting Hashwath on his side. The second in command guy is like, hey, guess what? We're gonna go kill the king. We're gonna infiltrate his ranks. Then we're gonna kill him because he killed like my parents and stuff. And Hashwath was always really weak, and he wasn't as good as Basby, and he always looked up to him. And then when they finally met the king's like, oh, this guy right here, the Byakuya Quincy, he's gonna be my second in command. And then he kicks Basby out, like he's not even allowed to join the army for like 10 years until he gets stronger and stuff. And so they have an interesting thing where it's like they're supposed to be fighting the king and they were like best friends, and Hashwath always looked up to Basby, but now Hashwath is like with the king now, and Basby feels like abandoned by him. Like, we used to be best friends and now you're working with the guy I want to murder.
Is this relevant to the main plot whatsoever?
I mean, he tries to kill Hashwath at one point, but he doesn't, and that's it. So no, it's not relevant. But I think
this episode's never gonna fucking end. Goddamn,
but I think it's interesting, and I want to talk.
It is. A lot of the stuff you glossed over. It sounds interesting, more interesting than the main plot, like which is the main problem with this fucking series.
And Basby's ability is that he points his finger and he shoots fire lasers out of them, and the more fingers he uses, the stronger the laser is.
That's fucking lame.
One of the other guys I really like, I don't really like this, but there is one guy who's a big fat guy wearing a diaper that he makes you fall in love with him. That's his power.
By shooting at a Care Bear beam, apparently.
Yeah, like a love heart.
Just to clarify where the writing is going.
Anyway, speaking of diapers, we cut to a baby, and this baby is blind, deaf, mute, and immobile. It can't even feel the outside world. It can't survive. But people start to realize that if they touch this baby, it heals their ailments. So people who are diseased, people who are cowardly, they could regain their courage. People who had broken hearts could have their hearts mended just by grabbing this baby.
Lost limbs.
Yep, lost limbs would be regenerated. But what they didn't realize is that once they gained that from the baby, they would die in a few years.
Not right away.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would take days, but sometimes years, months.
And then when they died, the portion of the soul that he gave to Borrow, he took back with their soul.
Yeah.
And so he basically, all these people are flocking to this baby, getting his power and then dying and then giving him their power back.
I think this is kind of.
I thought so too. This is why I liked the Kings. And then it's like
Okay, so
when they hear his name, when he hears his name, he hears the name of God, and that's when he decides from that point forward, that's my name.
This is why I fucking hate the series, because this is a really interesting concept.
Yeah.
And Kubo has always really cool concepts, and this is what I would tell him if I ever got sat down with him. Like instead of like, this has nothing to do with the Quincy's at all. This whole concept, there's nothing to do with the Earth making it turning Earth power to bows, or the war of the Soul Society. There's nothing to do with anything. Like everything going on with the King going on forward has nothing to do with anything. It'll be more interesting if the Quincy's were one plot, and then you had a new plot with this God baby concept. Well,
to defend Kubo, up to this point, it's been incredibly tight without a single wasted page.
I know that's the problem. Like,
so he wants to throw things in, and he doesn't have a place.
But this is what the problem with like the show. This is like the biggest exaggeration. But this is the problem with Shonen format in general. Like, there's not enough sagas have to, like, I hate the format of sagas. Like, a lot of mangas will be like, it's funny because they always start off simple, very simple story arcs, and then become like sagas going on forever. Mm-hmm. Like, they'll be a lot better if they had more of a nice conclusion, nice break points. But like, they have to go on forever.
They do at the end of the saga.
Yeah.
But like, the saga's going forever.
Oh yeah.
I think the Bleach style shonen though are not the.
Yeah. So I'm saying like this is like an exaggerated form of it, but I do think most manga in general should have more in between stories where, like, that's why I like the concept of fillers not being just trash in anime, because you could do cool stuff using these same characters and these worlds, these concepts, without having it to be a saga. Like
Yeah.
So like,
I think that's smart.
but like this could be like the Quincy's is one concept. This is something else entirely, and it's interesting. But I'm like, now like, what's the point of making this the Quincy King? Like, he's this character. When you add so many concepts, this is what same problem I have with Aizen. And same thing happened to Ichigo. They keep plastering constant with this character that he's just whatever the story wants to be. Like, he doesn't feel like a real fleshed out.
Like, why does he have to be a Quincy and not a Hollow King or not a Soul
exactly.
King?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, he has no Quincy identity that makes him. I'm saying, I thought he was cool, but like, I wouldn't. I'm not like he's the ultimate Quincy. Like,
So I should clarify. He is really cool. He is really cool in a lot of ways. I just didn't like him being the final boss, and I didn't like him being the Quincy King.
So that's a good point.
So he does is he gives his like powers to people, and then when they die, he takes it back and he gets stronger and stronger.
and
Like,
so he's done
when
this too.
When he first took it back as a baby, he was able to open his eyes for once, and he was no longer immobile.
Right, and the first thing he heard was the name of God, and that's like when he got his hearing back. And so what he does is with all the Quincy's, all the 26 Sturmritter or whatever, he's given them a piece of him, which is why they get really strong. But then inevitably, when they die, he will get their power. And so he's like, he benefits from waging like eternal war because he profits off of the souls of all who died. And this is also why I liked him, because he reminded me of the a little bit of the Warhammer 40k God King, the God Emperor. How he sits on his throne and he will die eventually and deteriorate if he's not constantly getting an influx of people's souls.
Yep.
So he's just up there and he's like, I want this. I need to just keep draining the souls of my people.
Yep.
Which is cool.
And we have this moment of like him sitting there, and he's like, the luchador is dead. So now he accepts his power back into him.
And now he's a luchador.
Yeah. And then we get the.
Does he ever get the powers to make people fall in love with him?
So remember, every power that he brings back into himself, I believe he can use. So he has every single power of like all these 26 people. When they die, they all go back to him.
So he's like Black Adam, like giving his powers to Isis.
Yeah. Which I also thought was Black Adam was also my favorite part of 52. Basically, I'm like, I think it's a cool concept.
Yeah, and to speak to Sly hating like where this art's gone, there's this one. I see the thing of Hashwolf just sitting back
On
against
that
the
white
wall.
screen.
Yeah, and it's just completely like the page is blank. It's just this little tiny figure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so bad.
And then you on a white screen, a white background.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten worse. And so him and Uryu just talks to Hashwolf, the second in command, and they're being a little catty.
They still have this. We might as well just clarify now. They still have like this rivalry where he's like, I don't trust you, and Rihama's like, I don't give a fuck. But like, I forget what happened with them.
Yeah, he's like, I can tell you, like, whatever you're thinking about doing, like, you're bound to the king anyway, because he's bound to all Quincy's. All Quincy's have a part of him, and so he's in you too. So just no big deal.
He's basically saying like he's not worried because Glasses Quincy is like beholden to the king. Like no one's gonna harm the king, and we'll soon learn why that is.
I'm assuming you guys feel the same way. Like none of us ever believed Glasses Quincy betrayed the guys.
That's what is so funny is this goes on for so long, and Uryu, the Glasses Quincy goes so deep into this. It's sort of like with Gin, where it's like, why not kill Aizen before he fused with the Hogyoku, the thing that made him a god? It's like, why would you wait so long?
I'm playing the long con.
Now I'm gonna kill him.
It's like when we were bitching about that checkmate agent in Project Omega killing Maxwell Lord beforehand, but on steroids.
It's like the long con eventually has to end if you want it to be successful.
Yeah.
You're in too deep.
Like if this was like a character moment, like he questions his loyalty, but it's not. He's always 100% a good guy, just like Snake Guy was 100% always going to kill Aizen. They just don't do it. There's no character conflict.
It's really
and
bad.
The other minor thing during this is that when the king goes to sleep, he gives his power to his second in command, Hashwolf, but it's like because the king needs to like regain his strength and stuff, but it never like comes into play. There's never a moment where like, let's kill the king while he's asleep. It's like this is just a thing, I guess, that happens. It's so dumb.
That's Bleach in a nutshell. This is a thing that I guess.
Why not kill the king when he's asleep when he has no powers? But whatever.
That's a bunch of shit that doesn't matter. All those the Soul Society captains. Daryl's like, hey, look at them. Hey, look at this one. Hey, look at this one.
Well, okay, so Nazi guy looks like a sunflower.
Yeah, and then I show you Rukia's Bankai because I'm like, I feel bad because Rukia, I never include her, and she does stuff. It's just like not integral or interesting.
I told you guys too. When I watched some of my students playing the Bleach Shonen Jump game, I saw Rukia using ice powers, and I'm like, does she have that power?
Yeah.
After having read like a million pages of Bleach, I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty cool power. She makes everything around her absolute zero.
Yeah, and it's even more interesting because, like I said, like one of my favorite things is powers with great cost. She has to focus because she lowers herself like to there too, and if she doesn't like regain control, she just dies instantly.
So one funny thing is, if I saw this panel removed from the rest of the series, I would think it's a very clever way of showing like ice and cold because the lines are very thin and very minimalistic. But since Kubo has done this many times before, it's like no, he just doesn't want to draw too much in space.
Yeah. And then I included this fight. This is the ultimate fight where I was like, I don't know whether to include it or not because this is going to take up quite a bit of time.
No, I'm glad. This saved the sweet for me. This is the best part.
Any Kenpachi you should include.
This is what I'm here for. I love having completely different power sets fighting against each other. Like, and you're like wondering how can one best the other.
So if you're remembering, Kenpachi is the guy who's just strong. He doesn't have any cool magic, really.
Yeah.
He's
and
like, I'm just
fighting
really
all the
strong.
time.
And so what had happened during this is after the first invasion, Kenpachi got beat by the other guys, and it's like, oh man, I gotta get stronger. And so what the name Kenpachi is a name that's given to a killer of men, like someone that's the greatest killer, and that belonged to someone else, and that had belonged previously to the healing captain. And she had given up that name and only healed people, never fought anymore. And then she's like, hey, Kenpachi, you need to learn how to use your sword. You need to go into Bankai, learn Shika and Bankai. So we're going to go into a black pit with each other, like a completely dark area. We're going to fight each other until one of us is dead.
Completely dark area. I wonder why he did that. Why cool put him in a completely dark area?
Dear reader, you won't be able to see this fight happen.
Yeah, I mean, you could, so he doesn't have to draw backgrounds. And so they fight each other, and then he kills her, and he's like, this is the best fight I've ever had, and she's like, me too. And so he comes back, and he's supposed to now fully, like, know how to use his sword. And he comes back to save his assistant captain, the little girl with, like, the pink hair. And so he's here to fight this kid who
His letter is V for visionary.
Yep.
For Vendetta.
Yep, Remy. And so this
It's like a kid in a trench coat. Not like a raincoat, I should say.
But he's got like the hoodie on. It's over his head and stuff. And he's always smiling. Like he always looks happy. And so Kenpachi goes to hit him. And his sword stops on him. And he's like, I guess I'll repeat myself. I can turn fantasy into reality. In this world, the strongest power is imagination. So all I had to do when you went to hit me is imagine myself to be stronger than steel. So this kid, anything he imagines, it will become reality.
And he's
What? Why are you sighing at that? That's like a crazy power.
Because, like, how is this a fight for so long?
how does Hal Jordan fight
Anything
anyone?
I imagine
Oh,
is
Hal
Green
Jordan
Lantern! Oh, I can imagine a big fist, and how can that go on?
There's a difference between a big fist and I can imagine any reality.
Yeah.
No, I agree with Ryan. It's
is.
so funny because all this kid has to do is I imagine everyone dead but me, and boom, you've like wiped out the
Yeah,
whole world.
like, I imagine this fight is over, I win.
This
Done.
in the comics do too much where they establish rules saying I can't affect other people, like I can't do this or that.
Yeah.
But like this one, there's no reason why he can't
I
explode.
think part of it is
They
because
go-
he actually has to picture it in his head becoming
Yes.
true.
And so
It would be so hard to picture stabbing this guy with his sword.
no, but
and that would be an interesting concept too, if like he feels like an innocent child that can't imagine that. But no,
well,
it's-
they do say one of the interesting things is they say like he's never if he ever imagines himself losing, he would just die. Like dying, he just would die because he would imagine it. So like the idea is like if Kenpachi can get him to not think about to put into his mind the possibility of losing, that could make him lose. But they don't really use that enough. Like that could have been a cool internal battle with him.
This fight, I'm going to defend this fight. It's not logical, like well designed, like fight, like you guys always say, or in stuff like Hero Academia. But it's a satisfying fight. It's an interesting fight, and I think it works in a way that of Kenpachi trying to overcome a seemingly endless obstacle, not necessarily in this is a logical, well thought out series of events.
Yeah, it's got a lot of hype.
It's just one of my problems. One of my problems with shonen is like, okay, you have these super powerful people and like they have these crazy OP powers and everything, and like I understand that can be really cool, but it just makes no sense to me that like this fight is so long.
The thing is like you have to not think about why doesn't this kid just kill him. Instead, you're just in it to see you're in it to root for Kenpachi rather than being like,
But
how does he just kill him instantly?
It is like I think like if any power that's limited to imagination does have the Green Lantern problem where if someone is only thinking in terms of like, all right, how would I kill someone? I make a million guns and I shoot at him.
The problem is they don't really elaborate enough to make that feel like a factor in this fight. I felt the same way as Ryan, as this kid could just kill him right away.
And this fight is almost 100 pages.
I can rationalize the way Phil's rationalizing it, but the fight doesn't play it out the way we're rationalizing it. Like, it doesn't really... It clarifies that he would lose if he thinks he could lose, but it doesn't clarify that he can't imagine him just exploding.
Well, yeah. And then that...
And remember,
that
Ryan,
should have been clarified.
a lot of the Sternritter have fights like this long, too. And this is the most interesting of them.
I know, but like 100 pages is so long for me to still like be like excited and engaged in this fight.
Yeah, like a lot of things. Everything in this comic would be so much better if it was shorter.
Yeah.
Like just shorter, and it'll be so much more
So-
awesome.
I think there's also the thing that they do where they like, as Kenpachi's fighting him so quickly, he can't think of all the things he needs to do to stop him. Like, he didn't realize he was cut, so he's thinking about putting a wall in front of him, but he's not thinking I need to imagine my wound being healed. And so there is a way of like being so like aggressive and fast that he can't think about all the things he needs to do, like, and like how he says, I almost imagine my death into reality, so I need to whatever. But then really it doesn't end the way, like, it doesn't use that.
Anyway, so they start clashing swords. The kid's like shooting a bunch of like rocks at him and stuff, imagining like sending these rocks, and he's like, I can't believe like you're so powerful, I guess I have to annihilate you. And he like imagines a bunch of guns and rockets, and he's firing them all at Kenpachi, but Kenpachi's like cutting them all down.
He thinks about a meteor.
He sends like a big hand at him that smashes him. Yeah, and then later on, this fight's going on that's so crazy. The kid's like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna imagine that there's another one of myself. So now it's like a perfect duplicate clone of myself. And now that our imagination's doubled, we're gonna send down a meteor and we're just gonna destroy the entire Soul Society this way. And Kenpachi's like, this is making me hard. And then so Kenpachi jumps up.
Here's like if this was a well written manga, they would have done something interesting with the fact that he just created a fully realized version of himself that can also imagine anything he wants. Like, but it's just a way to amplify his power. Like in reality, like if you create a perfect clone of yourself, like there will be a friction after that point.
What's to stop the clone from imagining you not existing?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, but that would be like, if this was well written comic, that's how he could have beaten him. Like that's how, like, by tricking himself into imagining like equally powerful force against him.
Yep. So Kenpachi sees this meteor and he has this giant grin on his face. He's like, "This is great. This is amazing." And this kid's like, "You're done. Like this thing is giant. It's like, moon size." And so Kenpachi jumps up.
And they cut to everyone. Just sorry, but to emphasize the point. They cut to everyone in society being like, "We're fucked." Like
even the villains are like, "Oh my god,
they're gonna kill the king." They're like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, like that's gonna kill the king. That's gonna kill everyone. Like, he's ending this character is so powerful. He's gonna end this comic prematurely.
And Kenpachi jumps up to it and he goes, "Drink Nozarashi." And then he turns his sword into just this giant blade. Like, it's like bigger than him, bigger than a man. It's like a giant meat cleaver. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he cuts it down, and this kid's like, okay, I'm just going to keep making clones of myself, and then we're going to send you into space. So they open up just a giant void of space.
I love that. They're like, I imagine you in space right now.
Yeah, and so, like, all of everything's being forcefully evaporated from your body. Your blood's going to start boiling.
This is why I didn't buy Byakuya's death. He's in space and showing his body exploding. I'm like, these people can't die. No, you can't say they can die. You cannot claim that. It's over.
But he's in space for like a second.
Yeah. No, but like, why would he not be in space longer? Why would he not kill him that way?
He kills him right now.
He gets out. Yeah, he just
How does he get out?
Him.
How does he get out of fucking space?
He's Kenpachi.
No one can die. It's over.
It's because out of the void that he's throwing him in, his sword comes out and cuts him in half, and he's like, "Hey, you forgot to harden your body." LOL.
Yeah.
But why doesn't he just imagine him a little farther away?
Because it's happening too fast, Ryan. He can't think that fast.
It is
so dumb.
So then the kid is like that. Oh, he imagines himself back together after he gets cut in half, and he's like, okay, then all I have to do is just imagine myself stronger than you. So he turns into this big monster, but then he just starts to split apart and die because he imagined himself being beaten by Kenpachi.
Yeah, it took him 80 fucking pages to realize I should just imagine myself better than you.
This is the fight where I was like, I think Sly would like it, but I know Ryan wouldn't like it. And I was trying to balance out which one to go with. I was like,
I also like how it ends, where he's like, you imagine you being some kind of unstoppable monster, but now that unimaginable monster ended up killing you. You fucking dumbass.
I just think about how, like, for our Patreon episode this month we did a couple Jimmy Olsen stories, and I just think about how in the amount of time they did this fight, Jimmy Olsen could go on like 12 different adventures.
Exactly.
Yeah, or you think about something like how we did the Lost Years of Spider-Man. Like, you can tell like a very large arc in that amount of time, but the fighting, guys.
Ugh.
And so all these people are fighting because this is like the second invasion of the Stern Ritter fight against the Soul Society people, when they're like, we've had time to prepare. Like, Byakuya comes back to fight against another guy and stuff, and Renji does too. And so while this is happening, the king goes up to the Soul King's palace, and he's like, I'm going to fight against like the top 5 people with now he gets his top 4 people. He's like, these are my top 4 Stern Ritter, and we're going to go through here and we're going to beat you guys. And there's so many fights that it's just so funny, because it's literally, these people's power levels are so strong that it's like, my power is just that you die. Like, as they're going through, like this one...
That was literally like his power. His power was literally, I could just make you...
No, but like, one of the Soul Reaper's powers, if their sword hits you, you die, no matter what. They're just 100%, like, that's it. You just die, you have no chance of living.
But I can at least see how you can fight around that, because you can...
Not get hit, yeah.
But the thing is, he's the best swordsman in all of Soul Society, so he literally kills all of the king's people before they move or can see him.
That's pretty cool.
Like, again, you're dealing with stupidly powerful levels.
That's pretty cool.
That I like that. That's again, that's setting up a rule, following through with it. Like you making the best sword fight in the world, and then you give him power. He hits you, kills you. That makes sense. Like, that's better than the kid kills you by thinking it.
But then no one dies, because then the king's like, I'm gonna bring them all back to life because I guess I have that power in me, and I'm gonna make them stronger when I do that. Because he gives them more pieces of himself, and then they end up beating the rest of like those people, and then the king goes to, like, there's a bridge before he can get to the Soul Palace, and the leader of all of the Soul Society, like the Shinigamis, the Soul Reapers, is this really like kind of cute big bearded monk guy, and he's always very chipper and happy, and his sword's a paintbrush. And he's like, I'm gonna fight the king and I'm gonna beat him. This is where you have to die. And you're like, this is the guy he made Zanpakuto's, the swords that they use.
This is like another Kubo self-insert. He's the master of the black. And I'm like, Kubo, is this you?
I think he just wanted someone to use black ink. But yeah.
Oh, that's all he does. He uses black ink for fighting.
So we're going to pause it here, because we're going to save all of the crazy, what can the king do? What is his powers? Because he is one of the most OP guys I've ever seen in fiction, if not the most. And you guys are going to get to see what he can do next time when we reconvene.
I will say, unlike most shonen, which just abandon everyone, it doesn't make sense how Renji, who lost to Ichigo in the first chapter, can now compete with these guys.
He trains.
Yes.
He also God, Bleach is so dumb. His sword. Remember how Zabimaru? It's actually like manifests itself as like a baboon with like a snake tail, and it manifests itself and it tells him, it's like, actually the Bankai form you're using before isn't my real form. I'll teach you my real form. Yeah, it's the dumb, like, the Bankai is the most, but so many of these guys are like, this isn't actually my Bankai's ability.
Right. It's just so it's like, it's nice that they've been kept into like relevant, unlike a lot of shonen, but at the same time it doesn't make sense. And
especially because the power level raises up so high, where you're like, Renji, like, his new power is that he has a sword in his right hand and like a skull in his left hand, like a claw-looking skull, and that's it. Like, it's not like he teleports through space and time or anything. It's just like, I'm stronger.
That's the problem with shonen in general. It's because they're always fighting statistically stronger opponents. It's not that they're fighting different types of opponents. They're just fighting stronger and stronger opponents over and over again. So, like, there's always going to be that power climb.
Mm-hmm.
While in fucking American comics, they always fight different types of opponents. So, Superman can defeat Doomsday punching, but Lex Luthor will outsmart him with a genius invention. But manga doesn't do that. It just has stronger and stronger opponents. You can't just have a different type of opponent.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they got different powers.
They have different powers, but always stronger. They never challenge you in a different way.
I mean, the imagination thing is different.
I mean, it's also stronger. It's absolutely stronger.
That is absolutely strong, but it wasn't. But that's why I like that fight and the love fight. because they actually,
Yeah.
but like even those weren't even main fights because they were side fights even. So like the main fight is just stronger and stronger.
Okay.
I agree. Bleach.
You okay, Ryan? Are you gonna make it?
Bleach.
Bleach. Ryan's gonna drink Bleach after this.
Yeah. So, I'm still. The further we get into Bleach, the more and more amazed I am that this is the fucking bullshit that everybody wants to talk about in our Discord. That, like, of all the things that I'm like, these are my favorite books that mean the world to me, nary a peep. Bleach, all you fucking people come running.
People love debating power levels.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you should...
Who would win in a fight, Superman or Ichigo?
Ichigo. I think Ichigo at this point.
Whoever wins, we lose.
That's true.
So you should join our Discord. You should join the Flying Machine Explorers Guild Facebook group. Have weekly discussion topics and all that stuff. I think I have the topics this week, so come talk to me about whatever I'm doing.
Cool.
And and we'll be back next week for the final of Bleach. So just recently, I was on I Guess We're Watching, a podcast where Buddy and Ethan go through an entire movie franchise, and this time they were doing X-Men, and I talked about Days of Future Past, and I actually ended up spending a lot of time talking about Disney and how, even though I like most Disney superhero movies, I think they're overall really, really, really bad for the genre. So, yeah, it was a very interesting talk. You can find them at IGWW Pod at Twitter, or just search I Guess We're Watching on like iTunes and all that stuff. And it was really, every episode's great, but I had a lot of fun talking to Buddy about Days of Future Past.
Cool.
So thank you all for listening to Divisive Issues. I've been imagining that Bleach was over.
Fuck, that was mine.
I have a good one if you want to follow up on mine. I've been Lloyd.
Fuck, that was gonna be mine.
No, say it. Lloyd. I'm Lloyd.
I've been Lloyd.
And I've been inserting Bleach into our podcast.
Stay in continuity.